Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.
Hello and welcome to the Leveling Up Podcast with me, George Swift. The Leveling Up Podcast is here to give you the personal development, the entrepreneurial development and the business growth that you, the ambitious business owner, desires. I'm here to give you the inspiration, the motivation and above all else to challenge your aspirations to take you and your business to the next level. Today I want to talk to you about hanging around successful people. Now you've probably heard this before, it's massively overused, this concept that you are the degree of success of the closest 5 people to you, okay? Now I don't know how true that is, it probably goes back to some science that's maybe a little bit outdated now, but the concept's not wrong, okay? And maybe even the science isn't wrong, I'm just skeptical when I hear things a little bit massively overused. You'll rarely hear me use these cliches, but the idea is that you are the sum of the closest 5 people to you. What is, however, unquestionable is the influence that the external environment has on creating us. We are molded and we are sculpted out of our environment. So I have a saying which is, first we are a product of our environment and then our environment is a product of us. In other words, we grow up in an environment. That environment shapes us and sculpts us in terms of our personality, our identity, our belief systems, what we do, what we don't do, what we think is good, bad, all those things, which obviously then manifests itself out as a creation of ourselves. In other words, we create an environment for ourselves to live into as adults based on that. And of course, therefore, it goes without saying that it's true statistically that most people do not change their fortunes. Most people tend to end up pretty much in similar circumstances that they started out in. Now, of course, if we're in business or we're entrepreneurs, if we're trying to massively evolve ourselves, our businesses, our lifestyles, if we're trying to create a real degree of success here, we need to break free of those forces. We need to break free of that status quo. So we can't be in that conundrum where the past equals the future. We have to say, right, you know what, the past is the past. We are who we are. We need to develop ourselves, cultivate ourselves so that we can create the future that we want to live into. However, this is really difficult because, of course, we are literally held in status quo by our environments. So if you hang around a bunch of people when you were growing up that were unambitious and they never got that ambition, it's not surprising that it never occurred to us to be ambitious as well. One of the things that I was grateful for growing up in Hounslow in West London like I did, I was surrounded by a lot of Indian people. Right now, when I was at school, the English people, the white faces, most of them, I'll be honest with you, went off and did BTECs or H&Ds. A lot of them went off and got jobs at 16. A lot of them, they, went down the route of apprenticeships, etc. And when I went and stayed on to do my A-levels, like pretty much most of my friends then, I think nearly all of them bar like one, were Indian people. And they have slightly different cultural pressures, inverted commas, on them, expectations. And actually, during that exposure, I was surrounded by people that had very high expectations put upon them by their families. Most of my friends went on to have great careers, great jobs. Most of my friends went on to do degrees and, get well educated, and they've done really well for themselves. And interestingly, what was good for me was they became my peer group. And as a set of peers, I started to look at them thinking, well, apart from the color of my skin, I'm not so much different from them. So it starts to rub off on you that actually, you know what, why can't I be like that also? Whereas my background was never like that, So my dad, bless his soul, was very much a kind of them and us kind of guy. And he had very kind of, hard and fixed ideas about what expectations I could have out of life. He was just trying to protect me. My mum always said I could be anything that I wanted to be, but no one really gave me the mechanisms for achieving that. So I had this kind of blind optimism myself without any mechanics of actually making it happen. And this self-imposed limitation that kind of came from my dad to some degree. Not from his own fault. I keep saying that, God rest his soul. A lot of that comes down to his own upbringing and circumstances around his own childhood, etc. And he found his own safety mechanisms, and he then naturally put those safety mechanisms on me, and I took them on for quite a long time. However, it was my Indian friends that really started to chisel out this new version of myself. It wasn't me. I didn't say at 16 years old, you know what, I can be better than this. You know, when I got in there and I just saw people that had higher expectations of themselves, people that had higher expectations put upon them, people that were just automatically assuming they're going to go to university and they were going to be successful. And it started to rub off on me. And then as they went to university, I didn't. So some of that old upbringing was still in place. Didn't do so well at my A-levels at that point. I went and got a job at 18, but obviously these were still my closest friends. And some of them are still close friends of mine today, like 30 odd years later. And they went off and they got their degrees, and I went off and did my job, and it still, you know, niggled away inside of me, you know, being connected to these people. Not in a negative sense that, you know, they're no better than me, they're no different to me. And why couldn't I, you know? So later in life, I got a bit more successful. Later in life, in my mid-20s onwards, got a little bit more successful. Went back and did my degree, then ended up lecturing at university because I got my master's, etc., etc. And actually, you know, the person I am today, the first elements of that were born out of my A-level days, even though I didn't do very well at my A-levels, and having those friendship groups that really changed and altered my perspective on the world. If I'd left school, got myself a dead-end job, hung around a load of old deadbeats, I had a fair few of them around me back then, I promise you, right? And I hung around with deadbeats and never had exposure to this, that would have been my normal, that would have been my status quo, that would have been my expectations. And the chances are I may never have broken free of that. By being around this new peer group, it gave me a different perspective on myself, a different perspective of life. And whilst it might have taken a number of years, maybe a decade, to truly transform me to any great degree, it did. So this is the message for today, right? It's so important. If you want to be something, if you want to achieve something, if you want to change something, then getting environments where people are already doing it or have done it, because it normalizes that. I described this just last week, actually. We did an induction day, if you like, for our Success Group Plus Mastermind. And one of the things I talked about was normalization and saying, you know, out there in the world as business owners, if you go networking, you know, it's normal to do 20, 30, 40, maybe £50,000 turnover. You know, if you're doing 60, 70, you're one of the bigger businesses out there on the networking scene. And it's kind of normalized, you know, that it's a struggle out there. It's normalized that sales is hard. It's normalized, you know, to not expect huge results. And therefore, if we don't get exposure to anything different, that becomes our expectations. And of course, we then fulfill upon those expectations. And what I talked about with Success Group Plus Mastermind is in this mastermind, every single person in there is pushing to 100K. So we only launched this like last March. Success Groups has been going for like nearly 8 years now. But last March, we launched Success Group Plus Mastermind for those people who were really ambitious and really wanted to be pushed and driven to achieve 100K. And the goal is to try and do it within a year. Does everyone do it in a year? Of course not, because we have to overcome certain hurdles and certain issues, etc. But here's the thing. So within the first 6 months, I think we had like 3 people achieve 100K. And we're not even a year in right now. And right now we've got 12 people, 11 people actually this year who are on target for doing it this year, some of which weren't even with us until like last summer. So, you know, out of 26 people we've got in there at the moment, we're looking at half or over half are going to hit that 100K within 12 months. Maybe push, some of them might do it within about 18 months. And you know what? There's more people in there that are going to come good over the next 6-12 months as well. So we create an environment where it's normalized to take a business from 20, 30, 40K, 50K and break 100 grand. It's normalized. We then got Extreme Growth Masterminds. You have to do a minimum of 100 grand to get into our Extreme Growth Mastermind. Once you're in there, the first thing we say to you is, right, double. How are you going to double this year? It might take you 10 years to hit 100K. We're asking you to double in 12 months. Why? Because I've seen it and we've done it ourselves and we've done it before. So many businesses we've got for our Extreme Growth Masterminds, that's the journey they came on. One lady went from 60 grand to 100 grand in 1 year, or 120 grand, I think it was in 1 year, from 120 to 180, from 180 to 340, I think it was. Now she's heading for double again and beyond. We had one guy came in, he was doing 150, then 350, then 750, then 1.5 million, then 2.2 million. Consecutive years this is in terms of growth. At the same time, in the same mastermind, I had another guy doing 150, and they literally level pegged each other. The question is, would they have level pegged each other if they weren't in the same environment? They both went 150, 350, 750. One went to 2.2, one went up to 2.5, then 3 million, something like that. The 2.2 million pound guy then merged his business with an 8 million pound business, and now he's a significant part of an 8 million pound consecutive years. And when you see that expectation around you, when you're surrounded by people that are going for those goals and achieving those goals, it normalizes that for you. And that becomes the new normal. And even though you might still be a 30, 40 grand business, the fact that people around you have gone from, 20, 30, 40 grand themselves, like you, and are now doing 70, 80 and looking at hitting 100 in the next few months or 6 months, it makes it completely tangible and believable for you. Now, some people are more flexible and pliable than others. For some people, they can be in that environment, be inspired within the first month or two. One guy came in, doubled his business in, I think it was like 4 months, 5 months, something like that. He hasn't been with us a year now, and he's already knocking on near on 200 grand. He joined us, he was sub 100 grand, right? So these people, they come in, they see our expectations of them, they see what people are doing around them, and they just instantly step up to that and they get real extreme business growth quickly. For other people, it takes a little bit longer to undo some of those self-imposed limitations. It takes a little bit longer for those old habits of self-doubt or those old habits of thinking less of themselves or, just their own expectations of what they can achieve or some of their guilt issues around success or money. It takes a little bit longer for that to rub off. Of course, that's why we do all the education in the group as well, because we're constantly educating people, just like I am on this podcast, to help shift people's perspectives on themselves, on their business, on the marketplace, on money, on success. And we do that as well. But one of the really powerful things about success groups, whether it's the online success groups that we run, the Success Group Plus Mastermind, or the Extreme Growth Masterminds that we run, the most powerful thing that we do is create a new normal. We create an environment and a culture where people are expecting more from themselves, and they're driving themselves, and they're pushing themselves, and they're challenging themselves, and they're growing massively, like year on year on year. And then you join, and suddenly your old peer groups where, you go from 30 grand to 40 grand and 50 grand, you think you've made it when you go networking. Suddenly you realize you're just getting started at 50 grand. And then you get, 100 grand. And then if you mature into my Extreme Growth Mastermind, now you've got people in there doing 250, 500,000, 800,000. You've got people in there doing 10 million pounds. It challenges us again. So I want to come right back to the whole theme of this episode, which is, what is it you really want out of life? If you were going to dream about something, if you're a 30, 40K business right now, I'm telling you now, think about 100 grand all day long. I believe any business can hit 100 grand like within the next 12 months. They might need to change themselves slightly, their business slightly. They might need to, or almost certainly will need to change what they're doing in order to achieve that. However, I do believe a presupposition of mine is that if you're a 30 grand business, 40 grand, 50 grand business, you can hit 100 in the next 12 months, even if you've only done 50 as a maximum and you've been in business for 10 years. Why? Because I've seen it so many times. I know what it takes to achieve, and we've created environments where that is the normal. Does this make sense? What is it you want for your business? What is it you want for yourself? And who are you hanging around? The environments you're hanging around, not just the people, but just the environments that you're in. Do they support that vision of yourself, or are they holding you back into a lesser version of yourself? It's not always negative. Like my dad, it was to protect me. It was absolutely to help me navigate through life as he saw it. They were just lessons that weren't necessarily conducive to what it is that I'm working on right now in my life. So there you go. Who is already doing, achieving, or on the path of what it is you want to achieve? Where are those people? Go and find them and hang out. Here's the thing though. Why would they want you in their group? So you can't go in there and just be a parasite and leech off everybody else. You need to offer them something as well. You need to contribute back to that environment. You need to contribute to that culture. Do not join like my group, for example, and just take. I had a whole conversation this week with a whole bunch of people and say, listen, you come in, and if you want to get from other people in this group, come in and give and give and give. Be generous and give of your time and give of your energy and give to the culture and positivity. Be an active member, play your part. And I promise you, the culture will embrace you and it will give back tenfold. So in your life, when you go and say, right, you know what? I want to be a millionaire. Right? And you say, okay, so let's go and hang out where millionaires hang out, and let's go and hang out with some millionaires. Why would they want to hang out with you? Honestly, why would they want to hang out with you? You're doing 50K. You get it, there's a lot for you to gain from this. What have they got to gain from this? Always ask yourself that question. If you are lacking in having inspirational people hanging around you and you're really, you're not being supported in your own ambition, or you feel like you're just being held back by the people in your life or the environment in your life or just your own self-imposed expectations and limitations, then don't forget, right? I've got a group, I've got a club. No matter where you are in your business growth journey, if you're already doing 100, 200 grand or more, we've got extreme growth masterminds here that can really take you to the next level. If you haven't yet hit 100 grand and you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50,000, and you are geographically able to get to me in West Berkshire, don't forget, we've got Success Group Plus, right? We have roomfuls of people that are achieving 100K right now, and they're going for 100K this year right now, and they're smashing it. Come and talk to us about getting into that environment. If you're further afield and you're listening to this, don't forget, we've got Success Groups. It's an online offering full of education and goal setting. And it's some of the content like we do on this podcast, but it's all workshops and seminars. It's Q&As, and we get right down to the nitty gritty of what it's going to take to get you where you want to get to. And again, every single person, whether it's the Success Group stuff online, whether it's the Success Group Plus Mastermind or the Extreme Growth Mastermind, every single person is in that same community. So you get access to everybody in that community, including these people that are now doing millions and multi-millions of pounds of turnover in an amazing culture, an amazing environment that's supportive of the individual. If you come and you throw yourself in it and you contribute to that environment, you get 10 times back out of it. Your first step, if you want to take your business to 100 grand, as always, don't forget the 6-figure fast track is there waiting for you right now. Go and check that out. biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk/fast track. What's it going to take to hit 100K in the next 12 months or less? Within that masterclass webinar, we look at the 6-figure mindset. So we look at maybe how you might need to change your perspective of yourself or work or life or business or money. We're going to look at 6-figure modeling. So does your business right now, can it take you to 100K or not? Because even if you're firing on all cylinders, if your business is a little bit castrated down at the 50, 60K mark, of course, you'll never get it to 100 grand. You'll get the last ounce of possibility out of it, but you'll never get it to 100K. So in that webinar, we look at getting you that 100K plus model. Also, of course, we're looking at methodology. What is it you need to do to hit 100K? What is it you need to stop doing that's holding you back and stopping you from growing your business? I've got a ton of resources out there for you right now. If you know you need a more positive environment, you need an environment with higher expectations of you, one that's going to drive you harder, but one just where your own expectations start to rise and that success rubs off on you, then just drop me a line, right? It's george.swift@biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. Drop me a line and say, you know what, George, talk to me about your environments. Talk to me about how they might help me. We'll have a chat and let's see if we are on the same page. Let's see if we're a good match and we'll take it from there. Anyway, as always, until next time, be successful.
Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.